Carlos, what do you reckon? Did everyone in Contact just realize that the schedule is important?
Yeah. And the light switch suddenly went. It went, oh, wait, maybe schedules do run jobs.
Welcome back to the Off-Site Podcast. As usual, I'm Jason Lancini, and I'm joined by Carlos Cavallo, and this week, a special returning guest, Sam Hanisch, although it does say in my notes here, Sam Punish, which is what you are on the weekends, maybe. G'day, folks.
Tinder profile. Nice.
No comment.
With the mustache and everything.
Yeah. And the hat. I guess you have no context to that now.
Awesome. Carlos, did you have a fact about Idris Elba?
Unbelievable prediction there. No, really nice good news story this week. So Idris Elba is sort of championing and got sign off for an organization here called Octopus Energy to develop a wind farm in Sierra Leone. So the wind farm will power something like 2,000 homes. And yeah, Sierra Leone, only 5% of the population have access to electricity. So yeah, nice good news story for a Friday morning.
You said three things there about what he did, but I still have no idea what the hell Idris Elba has to do with this project. What did you say? Champion?
He's pulled together Octopus Energy, obviously people from the Sierra Leone government, to get sign off for a wind farm. Yeah, it was part of COP28 announcement. Obviously, he's a big name, an actor over here.
Project manager.
It gets the eyes. Yeah, he's actually going to deliver it.
Yeah,
Carlos. It's a really good story, but I don't know if I would have forced us to re-record the podcast in order to slot that in the top.
Yeah, that was definitely my fault. It's nice to have one that's positive rather than the usual things we put out, like Russia suing Google, which is last week.
That was the good news story of the year. So any news? What's going on your side of the world this week, Carlos?
It's snowing across most of the country, and it's November. So yeah, it's just really cold. So when we contrast that to Sam living in Bali and you talking about a company beach day, it's pretty sad stuff.
You just had your summer.
Yeah, what are you whinging about? You've had summer. Yeah, like 3 weeks.
I wouldn't call that summer, but yeah. Yeah. No,
if it's any consolation, it's currently bucketing rain, which is why I'm soaked through. My hair's wet. Over here, we are prepping to, by the time this goes out, it'll be the week before, we're prepping to go to a conference in Melbourne next week, where we'll be exhibiting on a bunch of panels, getting to go and visit and meet a whole bunch of customers. So nice. Get a week away. Project Controls Expo. So not the one that everyone's at this week in the US of Groundbreak, of which I've got a ton of messages being like, are you here? What? No, I'm not. I'm at the Project Controls Expo in Melbourne.
Nice. Yeah, Groundbreak looks... it's a lot bigger than I always appreciated it for. Like the amount of vendors there is quite substantial. But
it looks like a party.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
All right, let's go into it because it kind of relates to a couple of topics that we're talking about. So we've got 3 things that we're going to dive into this week. The first thing we're going to dive into is this significant uptick in startup investment and mergers and acquisition in construction technology. Seems correlated also with maybe some of the US election results. We're going to dive into one company in particular, Outbuild, who just raised a solid Series A round. Then we'll talk about Tutor Perini, a US contractor that we discussed a couple of months ago, after they've announced or told clients that they're deciding to sit out bidding projects, specifically mega projects, because they've got too much work. And then finally, we're going to dig into one of the most unique buildings I've ever seen, which is a modern port office in Antwerp. So, biggest topic off the bat, I guess to frame the conversation broadly, I'd say we're seeing as an industry of, let's say, construction technology generally, an uptick in investment or acquisition type activity. Procore, even at Groundbreak this week just gone, have been making a bunch of acquisitions, announcing a number of acquisitions. There's also a whole bunch of kind of early stage seed Series A funding announcements over the last, let's say, 12 months, starting to really ramp up more recently from construction software and technology vendors. Specifically, a whole bunch within kind of scheduling and planning with it, which is interesting. The one in particular that was announced a week ago is Outbuild. So it's an American planning and scheduling company. They announced an $11 million Series A funding round led by a VC, and they've got a bunch of corporate venture firms, so Hilti and Trimble, in the round. For those that don't know what Outbuild is, it's kind of this all-in-one planning scheduling platform. So there's like a CPM component in a master that's supposed to replace your master schedule in whatever tool that exists in. And then they've got kind of this last planner, look ahead layer, weekly work plan, and then kind of the standard last planner PPC type of reporting built into the platform. So it's the all-in-one, replace all of your planning scheduling tools in one. And as I mentioned before, this comes off the back of some other investments. So Planera raising a bunch of money, Outbuild, and then we've also seen announcements from Autodesk building a field scheduling module called Work Plans that they're testing with some customers, and Procore announced literally just this week at Groundbreak that they are revamping their field scheduling module with a whole bunch of new updates. So with that kind of like lengthy intro, Carlos, what do you reckon? Did everyone in Contact just realize that the schedule is important?
Yeah. And then the light switch suddenly went. It went, oh, wait, maybe schedules do run jobs. No, it's great to see that, like, an area that we know well, there's clearly this traction of, I guess, mindset or view that it's super important to have this schedule. It's super important to involve the site teams in planning and coordinating projects. The last planner system, obviously a system we know well, and we know lots of our own customers that want to adopt the last planner system, and that's how they see the best way to coordinate a project and track performance and ensure that it's in the hands of those at site. So it's really, the investment in that space is really sort of validating this market or this type of tool, and the amount of investment shows that it must be working. It must be what customers want, because multiple organizations are getting traction within the space. And it's Outbuild. It looks pretty good. I'd say it's one of the better tools that we've seen from a planning point of view. It's very much sort of a connected space from master schedule all the way down to the work phase. It does feel like it's more of a small project, classic building job, because of some of the functionality that it sort of suggests through looking through their sort of video content. Yeah, it looks very interesting. I think it's probably their challenge now is probably dealing with planners and like contract requirements if they do step out of the smaller building projects into like government or private large private schemes.
I think you raise a really interesting point. Like, the idea of this kind of all-in-one platform, I think, would be really appealing for a certain segment of the market, specifically that kind of mid-market where it probably doesn't make sense or pencil out to have a kind of like full planning tool like a P6. A lot of the jobs in that market will definitely not have planners on the project. It just doesn't pencil out.
Nor do they need the function they won't need the functionality of P6 really.
Exactly. So for those folks, I'd imagine their stack right now is maybe some Smartsheet, maybe some Microsoft Project, maybe some spreadsheets, that type of thing. And then they're probably running some other thing for their last planner routine. So for that mid-market, I'd say that kind of, it would make a lot of sense. And yeah, you're right. Once you get to the major projects, it's not every market is the same. I think that, Sam, just kind of teeing up a question to you, if you having kind of relatively recently been on the customer side, I'd say the marketplace is fairly flooded. I like to call it the sea of like blue logos and names that you can't really quite remember.
Yeah.
And they all have different things that they focus on or different angles, but they're all kind of loosely in this kind of planning, scheduling, last plannery space.
Yeah.
I guess now, or as a customer, how would you think about the categories or what to like look for or to discern between them?
Yeah, it's really it's interesting, like going on both sides. But thinking back, you'd often see these products come through, and like you look at this product Outbuild, and it's really just wouldn't have been appropriate for what we were building most of the time. And because you're sitting in your own sort of market, you're really looking at these products going, who's using this? Like they completely missed the mark. And it really just shows why there needs to be such a raft of products, or like how these products can get out there and exist, because there is so many niches out there with their own sort of use cases. Like when I look at this Outbuild product, there's a lot of stuff there. I'm like, that's really interesting. But then you try and frame it around how I would use it when I was building stuff on big construction projects, and it was really hard to make that link. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff in there that looks super valuable. You can just imagine that there's someone, like I see the things that, when I look at software that are helpful for what I'm doing, there must be a bunch of people out there that look at Outbuild and just the initial offering in the videos and go, wow, that's amazing. That like is just solving a bunch of things that are causing headaches every week.
Yeah, I think that you can start to see, as there's more entrants kind of join the market, some like loose buckets start to form. I think this is like early thinking, but I would say that there's definitely this category of like, let's say, digitizing Last Planner, following its ceremonies and artifacts and cadences, or basically like taking it off a whiteboard, put it in a tool. And we've talked about a couple of them on the podcast before. Then there's like another category of tool that like Outbuild would kind of sit in, which like it's this all-in-one, replace the whole stack, buy one tool, stop paying Smartsheet and project and whatever, and just pay one fee, run the job. And I'd say like a Let's Build out of Europe is probably in a similar category. And then they also still have this Last Planner thing underneath it. And then there's like the master schedule competitive space, where you've got Microsoft Project still apparently doing some things to be a little bit more competitive with P6. Aster obviously is in that space, and all signs point to Planera trying to kind of tackle that to a degree as well. It's interesting. I don't know if either of you have any thoughts about, Sam, you mentioned that it's not a homogenous market. There are these like different segments within it. It's interesting to think about what the right solution might be in each market. So we talked about kind of that mid-market, maybe the kind of mid-market building job where maybe something like an all-in-one solution is a good fit. Be interesting to think about if there are any kind of in the other segments, like major projects or whatever, where you see another stack that fits more appropriately.
I think it's horses for courses. Like you look at the software really needs to fit around what you're trying to do and alleviate. I think we were talking to a project the other day, and they made the comment, the thing that was so helpful, or like the hardest thing about adopting software is trying to change what you do to fit the product.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this thing around like trying to reduce friction where, you imagine it would just be impossible to make something that fits what everyone's trying to do. And so when you look at these tiers, you sort of got to take a position on, well, what's important to this market, and what can we effectively improve for them without making their life a massive headache to change their system to suit us. And really it comes back to, well, what can a contractor get away with their client? Because the client essentially sets the rules up for them. And so like you look in these major scheme spaces that the clients are setting fairly hefty rules around master schedule requirements, reporting requirements. And so there's an initial gate that they have to pass through no matter what they want to do. And everything outside of that is, I guess, up for negotiation. But I really think it stems from the client and the industries they're working in.
Yeah, and the parameters on the project, like I'd say in the space that we work all the time in, like the major projects and infrastructure space, the parameters are, you have a client that's dictating something that requires the master schedule to be managed in a certain way. You also have very large teams and lots of sub-discipline teams that are having to do planning and coordination on a very large scale. And so that drives the need for multiplayer, which a lot of these tools don't have like baked right in, but may not be needed on when the team is smaller. And then the other thing that like happens on the very large project is sometimes that last planner system fully implemented in the way that it's kind of written down causes you to have, okay, I've got a master schedule, then I have a number of look aheads, then I have a number of weekly work plans. And so you end up with the like proliferation of versions of the plan floating around. And one of the biggest pain points on major projects is like everyone says they're on schedule, but to what schedule? And so the last thing you want is more versions of the plan. You really want two versions. You want the contract schedule and then the thing that everyone's delivering to. And so I think like you said, that there is horses for courses. And I think that we obviously built something based on what is definitely the set of pain points in major projects. And this looks like it's really nailing that kind of mid-market. So super excited for the Outbuild team and keen to see where they take it from here. One actual note before we jump off this topic, Carlos, I know we've talked about P6 a number of times before in previous episodes. What do you think this is there a message here for like Oracle and P6? You've got an increasing space of software vendors building planning and scheduling tools that are at risk of continuing to eat away at the cash cow of seats and licenses for P6.
It's interesting because if you're head of product for P6 at Oracle, or whatever that title might be,
I don't think they've got
two choices. Yeah, they haven't done anything for 10 years. So yeah, if you're P6, you've kind of got two options, because if they see and believe that there's this stack of planning tool market where people want interconnected schedules between contract and site, if they believe that story and see that story and are hopefully close enough to customers to understand that exists, then you either think about tackling the site level space, which is probably not what they would opt for because they don't really build projects from scratch. You can't imagine them wanting to go into that space. So if they do believe the story, they've got to think about tight integrations so they can start talking to customers about the thing that they actually want and need. So they would have to sort of pick their horses, and then obviously classic Oracle, they'd probably integrate with a few, work out which one is leading the race and acquire them or whatever they might do to increase their stack. From a product point of view, they probably just want to tighten their grip, the schemes that they have, and try to push that out rather than building a second product and growing that from scratch. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but it's hard to imagine a project right now that would opt for like an Outbuild over a P6. If they're in P6, it's going to be.
You
really
mean
hard
in the major project space, like if they've got a planning scheduling function.
Yeah, but even like Asta, like a smaller building projects in this country, you'd have to be really slick to jump in with and pitch a product like this to a team that use Asta. Like that would be a really difficult thing to do. So I've just gone in a full loop there, but I think
that's okay. Sam, you got any thoughts? Otherwise,
No, move on. We've talked enough.
Yeah, well then I'll wrap it. I think I would go further than you, Carlos. I'd say that Oracle have like a big problem coming down the line that they're going to have to sort out, which is the startups like Outbuild or the other set of ones that we've talked about before can continue to pull away the kind of field scheduling component. There are lots of contractors right now that are doing some level of this in P6. There's just a bunch of seats that they're selling for it. They're going to eat away that there. And like I said before, we've got like Autodesk and Procore building field scheduling modules that they're going to bundle into their build products for free. And so, yeah, sure, P6 can like still be this like spot that the schedule is authored for the major projects, but I think it's a fraction of the seats that someone's going to need. And so they need to do something about this, because I'd say that their like lean task management thing is like dead on arrival. I don't think anyone that's touched it says it's a pile of I won't. Yeah,
consistently poor feedback.
Yeah, consistently poor feedback. But like, this is just going to continue to eat away seats, and they have to do something, because if that happens, plus like the reporting side keeps eating away at seats, you'll end up selling an order of magnitude less seats per customer.
You can let the Oracle guy know next week at the expo all your concerns.
Yes. All right. That's the segue. The head of product. All right. Right. So on to good news. After notifying its investors of a project pipeline amounting to a total of $14 billion, the CEO of LA-based contractor Tutor Perini has said that the company will take a step back from bidding on multi-year mega projects, instead setting a maximum limit of $500 million on the projects that they're going to bid and pursue. They cited capacity issues as leading reasons as to why. So I guess the question is this like big newsworthy update? Is it something that's like business as usual? Sam, you've probably seen this happen once or twice before.
When I first read this, I don't know how familiar you are with the movie Dodgeball, but there's the Jason Bateman plays this commentator who just says dumb shit. And there's a bit where the other commentator says, Average Joe's is going to forfeit. And then he goes, it's a bold strategy. We'll see if it pays off. And that's all I can think of when I read this. I'm like, I don't know how this is paying off. Go for it. But no, when you sort of drill down into it, you probably think, I think it is newsworthy. It probably happens more than we think. But I guess because they have investors, they've got to announce this stuff. The stock took a bit of a dive, I think, after it, as it would. But yeah, you got to think that there's some smarts in there, because there's a bunch of contractors who went out and did their ass across the over the crisis through COVID, which is, stuff that's not quite related, but there's something to be said about you've got enough workload, we've got enough people, like why are we going out to chase down a heap more work? So I think it's a good strategy.
Yeah, a bold strategy. Carlos, do you have you've got Tutor Perini in your portfolio? You've noticed the stock taking a dive?
Lucas isn't eating this week. I'm not sure. I don't know why it's a good news story.
Well, I just meant that in the sense that the last one was us ripping into Oracle. So it's all relative.
It's better than that. No, so I think if that news story came out and said we're no longer bidding for more than $500 million jobs whilst we do X to improve or increase our ability to deliver more because we're winning projects, and spin it in a good news story way of we're doing some stuff behind the scenes to increase capacity, rather than looking at that. If your existing projects, you're like, these guys are on rocky ground because they're at capacity, so there's going to be delays and all sorts of issues because they're going to be struggling. If you're a shareholder, you're like, this is the least exciting stock in the world now because they're not going to go and win big jobs. They're going to flatline for the next few years, and that must be why the share price had a bit of a tank. In terms of like partnerships with clients, like if you've built up a load of momentum and then you go, oh, cool, we've got enough, see you later. Everyone else that you're competing against is going to have more advantage on the next bid. So it's hard to see a good news story out of it.
Do you think it needed a bit of PR fluffing before it went out?
Yeah, I think a PR team you could spin it in a positive way and like use it as
I think they've done that exactly. It says they've taken a break. The CEO characterized the pause as a short-term hiatus from bidding for some of the larger pursuits.
Yeah,
Would you read it?
ChatGPT is getting good these days, but but why not phrase it in a way of, if the market's there and you're successfully winning jobs, why not spin it in a way of like they're doing a more sensible thing to allow the company to grow in the right way, rather than go over their capacity, where it's just like, we've got enough, thanks everyone. In a public company, it's a bit odd.
I think it's like a slow news day, possibly. I think it happens pretty often. I've seen it happen in contractors I've worked for before, where when the market gets a bit boomy, the problem is that a project that you win ends at some point, and in order to deliver the project, what people can end up getting caught in is ramping up the workforce or the employee base in order to deliver those projects. So they're employing people on like employee agreements, so full-time contracts. The market gets really competitive, so you start paying pretty exceptionally high salaries. And at some point, as is construction, it does a big U-turn and starts going in the other direction. You've got a bunch of people that you in excess of what you need, and you've got a bunch of people getting paid pretty premium rates to do jobs that you might not need them for, or at least you can't afford them for. And this is part of construction, really. I've been through it exactly that kind of cycle at a previous contractor, and so I think it shows some restraint to push pause on going after more and more jobs, because internally in these contractors, it's like you have a tendering team, their jobs to go and win projects, and like they're getting high fives whenever they win a project. So the ability to kind of go, well, what's best for business in the long term? Yeah, well, it takes a CEO and chairman that is Tutor from Tutor Perini. So I guess you don't have that kind of agency problem with a third-party CEO who's just going to keep trying to build the order book and then be like, see you later.
Yeah. If you've got a work-winning department who are then like, they've got loads of free time, would you get them to just smash tenders in with a 25% margin just to see what happens?
Although I did notice that it is a we're not doing any more of these except for a few. So in the article it's talking about, but we're still going to pursue the $4 billion Southeast Gateway Line project and another one, $2 billion South. So it's like, slow news day. I think that's it. We've covered the topic. Next one. So this one's Carlos's favorite topic. So we're going to have a look at the Antwerp Port House, which is a building commissioned by the Antwerp Port Authority. If you've seen it, you'd remember it. It looks like, as I was saying in a previous attempt at recording this episode, it looks like a building is wearing some sort of like pointy military hat. That should help you find it if you Google it. And it was designed by Zaza Hadid, one of the world most renowned architects in the world. And she's now passed, but her agency. The design isn't the only impressive thing. When we were looking at the video that's been released by the B1M, some of the offices are built on top of an abandoned fire station, and there's like a crazy like beam running through underneath. What are your thoughts on the Antwerp Port House?
Before I go into the thoughts about the building itself,
I think we go straight to that.
No, the video was great, and then at some point my brain was like, I feel like I'm about to get pitched a product here. It just like clicked. Did you watch the whole thing? And then it was like this intro sales pitch around the product that they used to project manage it. Did you see it?
Yeah,
it looked horrible. Yeah. I'm like, they should get it like an extra gold star for delivering it with that piece of shit. But it was, it was a great video. It seemed like it was like the first half was from Mega Projects, the show, and then it was a pitch video somewhere in the middle.
Okay. I'm seeing the section here. There's a good, when you watch, there's a good couple of minutes. It's probably like 10% of the whole video is called a section called the software, which pausing for a commercial break. That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah, that's it. That's the line.
I was going to say, for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's kind of like a rectangle structure with a large courtyard in the middle, like 3 or 4 stories high. And because it's a listed heritage building, they basically built a very modern structure over the top of it with 2 beams supporting. The one thing, though, the 2 beams that obviously hit the ground, there's then a horizontal beam that connect the 2 underground. So my first thought is, it's on a port, which is a man-made structure. How do you tunnel that? Are you hand tunneling, like, to connect the 2?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've not watched the video. But having said that, I'm almost certain they didn't hand tunnel. So that's my 2 cents.
But you can't use a
back to you,
TBM
Sam.
surely on a man-made structure.
Yeah,
So what's the other option?
There are definitely some options somewhere between TBM and your hands.
In my simple mind, it's TBM or it's by hand with pieces of kit to help you. So it's one or the other.
But it was not just the beam, but there was it looked like there was raked piles in the middle as well. There was all sorts of stuff happening underneath this heritage. Yeah. So a bit more detail on that was needed. They kind of glossed over. They just had that nice, this is how it was assembled. And now for the building, I'm like, whoa, mate, what's going on?
Again, I've not watched
here?
it, but surely there's a basement. They just put piling. They must just built it from the basement.
Like 2 pile clusters with 2 pads, but then a beam that connects the 2 pads. So they said it creates the
structural ring.
Yeah, the structural ring. That's it.
Yeah, right.
The golden egg,
which I think in simple worlds, it stops the 2 pads moving away from each other. I guess that's what I took that to mean. But
do you think? I think there was pretty much positive feedback across the board. I mean, it's only a cut. You haven't spoken to people there, but I imagine the investment was quite a bit. Do you see these sorts of do you see this sort of investment stacking up in Australia or the UK? I'd say not right now. I couldn't imagine either government spending this sort of free cash on vanity projects like this, because in reality, it's a bit of a vanity project.
Yeah, the last 2 we had here was the Garden Bridge in central London, which is literally, as you say, it's a bridge with a green space on it. It looked amazing. That got canned pretty quickly because it was just for the public.
For Boris.
There's no vehicles or anything like that. Yeah. And there was another one called the Tulip, which is basically a huge tower with a structure on the top that looks like the shape of a tulip. So yeah, every time one of those pops up, everyone gets excited about it, and then someone somewhere goes, we haven't got any of the cash for this, so go back to building highways.
I was going to say this doesn't stack up, or I couldn't see it stacking up, but it was completed at, well, let's do this. You've seen the images. Carlos, what do you reckon the project value was?
300 million euros.
Samuel?
Yeah, 400 million euros, something.
55 million euros.
No way.
Wow.
Is it a miniature?
That top thing must be empty. Is there anything in the top thing?
It houses 500 employees.
Yeah, there's floors. Yeah, it's an office. But I wonder if it's because you're in a port like that. I wonder if you can manufacture you could prefab huge sections of it and just lift it.
That was in the video. How handy to be at they were loading all the steel sections straight off the barge, rolling straight off. You get no grief with any sort of port holding you up with any works. It'd be roll it in 24/7.
55 million though. That's unreal.
Yeah, that's a 2-bedroom extension in London or Sydney at the moment.
That's a small school outside of London. Good value.
Yeah, 100%. Well worth the video. Skip from 6 minutes 30 to about 8 minutes, and you'll miss the ad. Yeah, I think that was super interesting. Carlos, do you want to read us out, mate?
Yeah, thanks, guys. And thank you very much, everyone, for tuning into today's show. If you did enjoy today's episodes, please do think about liking the video or following us on your chosen podcast platform. Go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you to Sam for joining us again. I should have said that before. Giving up his Friday evening.
F&A Cotton, F&A.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sam. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.